Today's top picks from Reuters Breaking Views. Barclays' €8.2 billion U-turn creates a bonus headache, and the Eurozone's blind deficit target fetishism is self-defeating. With me now to discuss these stories is Reuters Breaking Views Assistant Editor Robert Cole. Robert,
Hi.
good to see you again. Let's start with Barclays. Said there it was a U-turn. They've previously said that they don't require any state aid or central bank funds. They've taken those funds, but on top of that, what's this bonus problem here? Yeah,
I'm not quite so concerned about this U-turn that you characterise and the taking of the funds. These are, remember, funds which have been accessed by Barclays subsidiaries on the continent of Europe, and in the grand scheme of things, they're not massive amount of money, but I think it does leave Barclays with a headache, which it recognises over bonuses, because it can't on the one hand be taking these lumps of state aid and then somewhere down the line be suggesting that some of its traders or others would be taking bonuses, as it were, on the back of it. So as well as saying that he's taking this state, or this ECB support, this ECB liquidity, Barclays saying laudably and quite clearly that the benefits of that will not be added into the bonus pool. But the headache comes because, how do you actually decide what is a benefit of this liquidity and what isn't? Now, there are ways of drawing it so that the sort of direct benefits can be, if you like, set aside and not put into the bonus pool. But, the whole idea of this was to encourage trading, was to encourage economic activity. And in a very, very broad way, lots of people will benefit from that and may earn bonuses. So there is a headache there, and, the politicians may come, backlash may build, and one can't depend on the politicians or public opinion to see these niceties.
Well, you mentioned there, you said the aim would be to instill and to spur economic activity, not necessarily traders making a few million here and there.
That's very good point as well. I think there's a lot of evidence suggests that the liquidity has helped financial markets, but it has not yet fed through into clear economic data of jobs being created, companies being formed, GDP coming through.
And especially in Portugal and Spain. Talking of Portugal and Spain, this takes us on to your next story, which is this deficit fetishism. Spain looks like it's going to miss its deficit targets, but it's asking for more leeway from the European authorities to meet those targets. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, and the European authorities seem at this stage to be saying, no, Spain, we've got a rule, you've got to stick by it. You can see, the arguments on both sides. The rules are there to be kept to. If you break them all the time, there's no point in having them in the first place. But I think the weight of the real problem comes, the real sympathy rather, should be for Spain, because if it is obliged, if it has to cut its deficits by as far as it's obliged to, as quickly as it is, it could just lead to, probably will just lead to further difficulties down the line. It could get to 4.4, let's say, by slashing, by raising taxes, but that's going to stop economic activity, which feeds a negative feedback loop. That's in the short term. In the long term, I think it could pose problems as well.
Well, we've seen what happens with real fiscal discipline. We've seen what happens in Greece. Of course, the question of moral hazard. Does Portugal come and say, OK, we want more time? Does Ireland say that? Does Italy say that as well? Where does it stop once it starts to unravel?
But I think the key word in Pierre Briançon's view here is fetishism. Let's not get too hung up on the time scales and indeed the particular numbers. Yes, the broad thrust is important. I think everyone would agree with that, but you need some flexibility both in the timescales and perhaps the absolute numbers as well.
OK, Robert, thank you. That was Robert Cole from Reuters Breaking Views. For more agenda-setting financial insight, watch our US Breaking Views show every day at 12:30 Eastern, 17:30 GMT. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.